Hello aspirants and welcome again to Legacy IAS Academy. In this lecture, we will understand as to why China is not facing any US tariffs to the tune of 50% that is actually being imposed on India. So we'll understand why this difference of imposition of tariffs by US on India and China. So let's get started with the news. So the context here is the fact that India has been hit by 50% of US tariffs, and the same has now been in force since 27th of August. Now 25% of this 25% was due to the fact that USA wanted to lower its deficit, its trade deficit with India. So these are sort of retaliatory tariffs, but another 25% of tariff was imposed on India just for the fact that India imports Russian oil. Fair enough. But at the same time, China is also importing oil from Russia. In fact, it is importing more oil from Russia as compared to India. However, still, China is not seeing any imposition of these percentage of tariffs. Of course, there are tariffs by USA on China and vice versa, but not to the tune of penalizing tariffs which have been imposed on India. So we'll understand what the reason for this exactly is. Before we move ahead, an important notification about the new batches that are going to start from 22nd September and 16th of October. These will be the regular batches and the weekend batches from 4th and 25th of October. Now, once you enroll with us, there will be a lot of advantages that you will get at Legacy IAS Academy. Some of them are mentioned here. For example, the comprehensive coverage of the GS papers. Each and every topic up to the minutest of level will be covered. One-on-one mentorship is probably one of the most important features here, along with doubt solving. There will be regular interaction with educators as well. Another feature is that each and every batch will have only 40 students or less than that. Not a single batch is going to go beyond it. There will be daily mains answer writing practice in addition to the prelims and mains test series. Now, one more thing that we have to offer here is the 360-degree coverage of current affairs. In this, the entire close to an entire day worth of live current affairs is going to take place at Legacy IAS Academy every single week in order to cover your current affairs comprehensively. So if you want to enroll with us, you can download our app for both Android and iPhone, or you can log on to our website as well, that is www.legacyis.com, or call to us on these numbers. So now let's continue with our news. So what were the reasons of imposition of such tariff? Very clear, twofold reason. One, retaliatory tariff to reduce the trade deficit with India, but the other was a penalizing tariff which was imposed on India because we are purchasing Russian oil. However, if you see the data, India has imported around 88 million tons of Russian oil in the year 2023, whereas China has imported even more. So this is as per the latest data. So clearly China is importing more. However, USA is still not imposing that penalty or penalizing tariffs on China, and let us see the reasons for that. So the reasons for that is, of course, reason would be to the tune of that US is dependent on China. China is holding US's nerves in some or the other domain. So let us see what they are. The very first thing is the rare earth elements. So the rare earth elements, if you talk about, China basically controls around 85, this keeps on fluctuating year on year, but close to 85 to 95% of global rare earth elements supply. And why that is happening? Because close to 70% of production is happening in China itself. As far as global supply is concerned, over 80% is being controlled by China since 1990. At the same time, there are certain 17 metals, these rare earth elements, which are very crucial for the USA, for the United States of America, for its electronics defense as well as clean energy advancement. As a result of which, now since it's important for electronics, for defense, it becomes, specifically for defense, if you talk about, it becomes a compulsory import for USA. It becomes a compulsory import for USA. So if USA imposes it on China, what will happen is China will also retaliate, or may even stop giving the rare earth mineral, because China has already done that previously, wherein in April China restricted 7 of such rare earth elements, which disrupted the auto industry of USA. So we can clearly see that China is holding a nerve of USA in this scenario. Plus, if you look at the dependency of USA on China's rare earth minerals, so USA is clearly very heavily dependent, and in a single month there was a jump of over 660% of the imports. And if you look at the rare earth imports from China, you see USA is importing around 70% from China, and the rest of the 30% is imported from the other countries. You have Malaysia, Japan, Estonia, as well as others. So more than half, in fact it's three-fourth, close to three-fourth of rare earth mineral is being imported from China, as a result of which there will be a supply shock if USA imposes any tariffs on China. Now, another reason for this is USA tried to do that. It does not mean USA never tried. Yes, USA tried. In fact, very recently in Feb and March, it started a trade war with China. How did it start? First, it imposed a higher tariff on fentanyl, and subsequent to which the trade war had started. So USA's tariffs went up to 145% on Chinese goods, but China also responded by imposing their own tariffs up to 125%. As a result of which, now since China was also not holding back and it was also imposing tariffs on USA, and as you already have seen here that in April, not just imposing tariffs, it had restricted certain rare earth elements as well, which was creating a shock on the auto industry of USA, as a result of which USA and China actually came together to an agreement saying that this trade war which is going on, we will stop it for around 90 days. And this 90 days would have gone over quite soon, but now this peace has been extended up to the month of November. So USA is completely wary of the reviving of full-scale trade war with China, and it of course clearly is visible, cannot handle that, as a result of which USA is not imposing these tariffs on China. Whereas on the other hand, India is basically seen as an easier target. Why? Because the retaliation capacity of India is not to that extent. We are not having certain rare elements or certain things with because of which USA would be very heavily dependent on us. And having rare earth mineral is not some out of the blue strategy. It's just that by chance China and Chinese region has got a abundantness of what rare earth minerals. So that is also a part of luck which is at play as well. Now, what is the US's response to that? See, we are clearly seeing that on China, these things are not being imposed. But USA is also responding by saying that there is another reason. There is another reason in the sense that there are other reasons and not this. So what are the other reasons that USA is talking about? USA is saying that India is profiteering by buying cheap crude oil from Russia, and it is not for strategic purpose. Remember, in the beginning we said that China is importing more amount of crude oil from Russia than India, but still why no tariffs on China? That is because USA says that India may be importing less, but India is doing profiteering because of it. Because what we do is we buy crude oil, we refine it into petroleum, and then we also export this to earn exports for us. Whereas USA says that China is not doing so for gaining profits, but rather is doing so for long-term strategic need. So since India is doing it for profiting, that is why the imposition is only on India and not that on China. So what can be the impact on India here? Of course, we are the primary targets, right? Now, since we are the primary targets, what is going to happen, what is in fact have started happening, is the imposition of tariff. Now we have become the primary target as well. Now, trade diversification efforts of India with US. So whatever exports we are sending to US, we could look for alternate countries to send it across, but that is also becoming quite difficult because our free trade agreement with European Union, etc., is not catching up pace. So that is another concern for us. Now it also reinforces India's image as a reseller hub rather than energy deficient consumer. That means because USA has said that India converts crude oil into petroleum and then exports it, so the world will know. Of course the data was already there, but it is reinforcing and publicizing the fact that it is not that we are importing crude oil at cheap price because we are deficit, but rather we are doing so because we are reselling it to earn more profit. So that is going to not give much of a moral high ground to India. So now what can be or should be the way forward is, of course, to